track, getting hit multiple times. Coming out of that bike section, more drivers coming to blows. Before we start with today's show, we would like to acknowledge the passing of one of the SCCA's best. This past Sunday, the Formula V community lost Jonathan Weisheit. Jonathan made his first start at the SCCA runoffs in 1976, and from there he blossomed into a nearly 5-decade-long career. His prowess in a Formula V led him to being inducted into the Formula V Hall of Fame just last year in September of 2024. But outside of that, Jonathan left his mark as a consistent presence in the tech inspection crew for the runoffs and his involvement in the Challenge Cup Formula V series. Away from the cockpit, Jonathan is remembered by those who spend time around him as being a kind and loving man with a love for the sport that lasted throughout his life. At the root of it all, Jonathan was a racer, and in this sport that we all love, that is just about the highest of regards. Our thoughts go out to Jonathan's friends and family and the Formula V community at large. In the spirit of all racers, though, the show must go on. So, well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula V Weekend Warriors. This is round number 10 of this season, coming to today from a very rainy Okayama. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth, and also working the cams on tonight's show with me, is Joshua Wilkie. Well, Josh, we're off here in the rain. The first rain race that we've had here in the Formula Vs in quite some time, but I have a feeling this race is going to be a fun one. Okayama usually puts on some very good racing. There's some rain into the mix as well, though, and I think we've got a very intriguing race that lies ahead here today.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. We all know this place pretty darn well, I think. We've all been here a bunch, but rain's going to throw a bit of a wrench in the gears for our drivers today, for sure. Not super affected by them here in the Vs. I know after last season, they decided not to do too many rain races, pretty much because it wasn't really affecting them too much as far as I know, but it is going to affect them a little bit around here, and there's definitely some standing water out there too, so should be a pretty interesting one, I think, today, Ron.
Oh, it is certainly going to be an intriguing race and part of this absolutely fantastic schedule of races that we've had up to this point in Season 3 of 2025 here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors. Tracks like Alton Park, Phillip Island, Summit Point, Cadwell Park, VIR, Jerez, Long Beach, the Saxon Ring, and Magny Cours in the weeks that have preceded this race. But here at Okayama, another fantastic track and part of a good stretch of races that we have to bring this season to a close. Next time out, we're going to be on Lime Rock Park on the classic configuration of that track nonetheless, and then Donington on the national layout will bring this season to a close. Currently in the midst of qualifying right now, these racers looking to jump onto the track here in a couple of moments time, following Michelle Lynn, the sponsor of today's broadcast here of the Formula V Weekend Warriors on Slow Motion Broadcasting, as she runs her way out of the pit lane. Now, one thing to raise about here in this qualifying session, as per usual, the solo session for these racers, they have 15 minutes and 4 laps to try and get the job done, but also probably going to see these racers maybe hold out a little bit. We're right at the end of the band of rain here in the sim, so despite the fact that we already have a little over 4 minutes into this qualifying session already, haven't seen a single driver set in a lap time with the exception of only 2, so it's gonna be a little bit flipped compared to how it usually is here in this series, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Things a little bit messed up at the moment. It does seem like as if qualifying started just a tad late here for some. We're having some problems with the cameras and overlays there for a moment, but I think we are all copacetic now, so should be pretty interesting. It looks like the sun's starting to come out here, so I'm not sure the race session's actually going to be totally wet, but it's looking pretty wet out there at the moment right now. You get a shot off the nose of Michelle Lynn's Formula V race car here, looking getting on the brakes into, I believe, what is that, T5 into the hairpin here. Not looking like it's too slick out there for them. Not having to worry too much about the rain, but definitely on those curbs, I would imagine even the V's are gonna have some issues.
Yeah, the curbs, not exactly a Formula V car's greatest friend. I mean, open wheelers just generally not very good with curbs, and then you throw rain into the midst as well. That's when you get a little bit hair-raising. I will say, though, and this is honest, Josh, copacetic, I think the last big word I learned like that was mayonnaise, so I applaud you for breaking out the thesaurus on this show, something I clearly have not done in my time on broadcasting. But right now, we're still in this qualifying session. Antonio Reese topped the qualifiers as it stands right now, holding on to a 203.046. Alan Degassis set to join him on the front rows. It stands right now 2 Masters racers occupying the front. Make that 1 Masters racer occupying the front rows. Ethan Orr, the usual top qualifier throughout this season, with a staggering, at this point, 7 pole positions here in Season 3 of 2025. Not holding on to the pole just yet, but P2 on the first run. It's a very good lap from the drive of the 22 car.
Yeah, things are looking a little bit as usual around here. Antonio Reese kind of poking up above. He's usually maybe second, third, fourth, always right up there at the beginning, but it looks like he's got a pretty good lap under him today, almost a 10th faster than Ethan Orr at the moment, but that can be kind of chalked up to just sort of an early lap or even maybe a little bit of a slippery curb or something, so we still have a bit of time to make that happen as Chris Montgomery goes second place there, so that's not too bad for him as well. Looks like we might have a little bit of a shake-up at the front here. Andrew Love just poking in there 5th place as well. Pretty much have a lot of the kind of same players up at the front here, but it looks like we might get a bit of a mix-up in the rain today. Wayne Buttermore as well, poking a little bit higher than usual there, in almost in the top 10. Parvinder Ladar sitting in 10th place, a little bit farther back. Expect to see him move up a little bit. Got Nate Coliseo with us today as well, so kind of anything's possible out there at the moment.
Anything is possible when you believe, and anything is possible here in a rain-soaked track. I think the last time we saw a rain-soaked Formula V race was all the way back in season 1, I believe, of 2025 when we were running. I think it was at New Hampshire when we were running that rain race, and that was a wild one. I distinctly remember that being a tough one for those racers as well. So only time will tell how it's all going to work out here for race number 10. But as it stands right now, qualifying times getting set on the board. Our SMB colleague, Mr. Guido Marzucchi, returning here to the Formula V Weekend Warriors after taking most of the season off. He's back on track. He's not on track in the moment as he toes back to pit lane. Perfect time for me to say that, as Alan DeGas is going to jump up to the pole position there in the 927 car. 201.8 for him there. Nice lap from DeGas.
Yeah, great lap from DeGassis there for sure. We're getting a little bit of a mix-up at the top of the field today, Ron. It's a little bit different than usual. Usually we sort of have Ethan Orr and then maybe, you know, if a Tortullos are around and maybe a Parvinder every once in a while and Antonio Reese. But today it looks like we got a bit of a flip of the order, and I'm wondering if that has to do with the rain. So, you know, I said earlier that it doesn't really affect the car very much, but you can see Alan DeGassis under braking there doing a little bit of squirming, trying to kind of figure out where exactly the grip is there, the brakes grabbing each tire. Perhaps not in exactly the most advantageous way for him going into that corner. So it is going to be a bit of a difference out there. You know, one of the hardest things I've found in iRacing, and you know, since the rain has become a thing here, is really the drying track. It's the track as it's getting wet. I don't find quite as hard, but as it starts to dry out, man, does it ever get difficult. You hit the brakes, and if one of them grabs a dry patch, it pulls you in that direction, and it can get pretty hairy out there pretty fast.
Yeah, it certainly can get very, very hair-raising. I say this as somebody who absolutely adores running in the rain. My dad used to call me a mudder, like a horse who does best in the rain, and I am very much so horse-like, even nowadays. I mean, compare it to my karting days, but now, holy cow. Usually after these shows, my dad has actually a tradition of feeding me a small sugar cube, so that's usually how it works at the end of these shows. As Alan DeGas is now down to P2, we run on board with him in the 927 car, heading his way off through the final few turns around this lap. It's certainly a wild ride around this track here of Okayama. These racers have a lot of turns on their hand. This track also an intriguing one. Hosted Formula One back in the mid-90s. It was 1994 and 1995 where it hosted at the time the Pacific Grand Prix. Only 2 venues in the history of motorsports have ever hosted the Pacific Grand Prix. It's here at Okayama. At the time it was called IDA, I believe, IDA as the other name of the track, and they also hosted it at Laguna Seca many moons ago back in the 60s. I think it was a off round, a non-championship race in the Formula One World Championship that season. So kind of odd when you look into the history of this track. And if you ever look at the track map of this place as well, lots of the turn names named after British motorsports legends. The reason why that was the case is because this track originally opened as sort of like a motorsports resort and holiday destination, and to try and get investors in to buy up some of the condominiums and the houses around this place, they brought in some old British racing drivers to do laps with wealthy businessmen in the passenger seats. That's why you have many turns around this track named after British racing drivers instead of Japanese racing drivers.
I was gonna say it does have some kind of interesting corner names there in Williams and Moss, Atwood, all sound very British. Hobbs, I believe, as well as another corner or another driver from another British driver. Yeah, pretty cool actually. You know, we've been here so many times. I feel like I know this place so well. We've all probably, you know, started our iRacing careers around here. And then it always ends up being a little harder than I think it is, though. I always think I sort of have this track's number, and then when I get out there and race it, it's not the case. And I think that has to do a lot of the time because people know the track so well. You get out there, and the racing tends to be pretty gritty because of it.
Yeah, I like the way you described it, gritty. You got to have grit and tenacity to run well in these races, and certainly all these racers looking to have a good one here today. Try and keep the good momentum rolling through to the end of this season as well. I'm looking here. Currently battling some light technical issues on my hand. So as I try and get those squared away, I want to see if Michelle Lynn is done with her qualifying at the sponsor of today's show here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. She still has a couple of laps left to go. She heads her way off through the final sector right now, around about the same part of the track that Andrew Love is in right now. There's Michelle as she heads her way off in through the final corner onto this not very long start-finish straightaway, the back straightaway, and the lead up to the hairpin of turn 5. Certainly going to be the premier spot for these competitors to try and get a move done. Michelle looking to try and jump ahead of these racers and finally set a time. She jumps up to P8 there. Well done from Michelle. Not top of the Spec 2 racers as it stands right now, as Parvin Ladar and Andrew Love currently top in that class, but Michelle Lynn still breaking her way inside the top 10.
Yeah, top 10 is definitely respectable around here. You know, I take it back about the rain there, just watching some onboards. They're definitely feeling the rain out there for sure. And the curb looked like it's extra dangerous as well. So definitely a little bit of extra challenge out there with the rain around Okayama here. And it's been a little while for all these drivers too. We decided basically not to have rain this season. We're all up, what is round 10? And this is the first round, I believe, this season with rain. So they're going to be a little rusty in the rain as well. All it takes is one little, miscalculation, one braking in the wrong spot on one of those white painted lines or on a curb, and it could end your race for you.
Yeah, and if you do have a moment like that, this track does have a little bit of runoff area, but it's not vast runoffs and vast swaths of asphalt runoff. No, it is grass and gravel. The grass basically going to be a slip and slide. The gravel around this track is rather aggressive, so to speak. I'm not really sure how you judge the aggression level of gravel, but if there was a way to judge it, I would certainly rank the gravel traps here at Okayama as being rather high in terms of the aggression of that gravel. It's a rough ride if you go off this track is what I'm trying to say. So keeping it within those white lines, keeping it off the curbs when you can and when you dare, and also avoiding standing water. One thing to raise about these Formula Vs, they've got groove tires on as the dry tires, and I don't believe they have a rain tire option. So the same tires that you have in the dry gonna be the exact same situation that you have to deal with in the rain, which can be a blessing and a curse. One car that we see a lot of in terms of the struggles that these racers can have in wet conditions is a Formula Ford. Very similar case in the sense of groove dry tires, as same exact tires you have to run on in the wet, and it's kind of a mix of the two. Understeer is usually the order of business when these Formula Vs are running out here in the wet conditions. I'm not sure if we'll actually have the time to have a chat with Michelle at the start of this broadcast, because we're getting to the end of qualifying right about now, it being a solo session as well. Once we hit 0 on that clock, which we have now, everybody's going to get dragged back to pit lane, and we'll have to get this race up, rolling, and ready to rock. The rain has come back with a vengeance, and we'll be able to take a look at that starting grid here in the not too far off future. And we'll definitely have a lot to talk about come time with this 30-minute long race that starts to begin in a couple. Alan Degassis starting this race from the pole position, the Masters racer, setting a 2 minutes, 0.109 lap time. Antonio Reese set to join him on the front row. It will be Ethan Orr starting this race in third, next to Tortullo, rounding out your second row. Andrew Love will start in fifth, Parvin Ladar in sixth. Nate Colasio will start this race in P8 alongside Chris Montgomery. He's actually starting this race in eighth. Nate Colasio in the 8 machine will start alongside in seventh. They got the numbers mixed up there. Kurt Nunez will start this race in ninth, with Guido Marzuki riding at your top 10.
Yeah, and then in 11th, we have series sponsor and series admin, round sponsor and series admin, Michelle Lynn from Dime Doll Racing in 11th place. And Brian Hansen, we have 12th place. Well, that was a bit of a strange sentence, but I think we got through it. On to 13th place, we have Jim Brewster. 14th, Jason Grider. 15th, Brent Thompson. 16th, Lars. Not going to try that one. Let's try it. Tejels?
I believe it's Lars
Tiehouse there, I won't forget that one. In 16th place. In 17th, we have Joshua Justice. 18th, Wayne Buttermore. 19th, Ken Hado. And 20th, Nick Tullo.
And looking through the final few starters that we have in this race, starting in 21st is Samuel Cooper. Starting this race in P22 is going to be Brian Belansky, and that will round out your starters for this race. 22 cars for this 10th round of the championship. Gonna be a tense one for sure for these competitors as they're on this warm-up lap, trying to warm up their tires as best as they can around a track that is wet, but not cold either. Relative humidity, of course, at 93%. That's odd. I've seen some dry dry races that have higher relative humidity levels than this one when the track is absolutely soaked. Looking as well at the ambient and track temperatures, 82 degrees for the ambient temperature, 81 Fahrenheit for the track temp. So usually, Josh, we like to see this happen from time to time, a rain race where the track is just absolutely freezing cold. Not getting that here today. Track temperatures going to be rather warm for these competitors, going to supply them with a small little crumb of grip in what overall is going to be a massive slip and slide for these Formula Vs for race number 10 of the season, as we're waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now, and the drivers are on their way. A commanding start from Alan Degassis. Looked like he jumped the gun a little bit there. I don't think he'll pick up a penalty for swapping lines before that green. Overall, pretty much single file throughout most of the field as they head their way down into turn number 1 for the very first time. I say they're single file. They're squabbling a little bit farther in the back. Look at Andrew Love battling hard as it stands right now side by side between himself and Parvin Ladar as we run on board. Right now, this is a close moment involving Nate Colascio trying to make his way up some spots in the Chiquita Banana car, slipping his way through up into another spot. He tries to go on Ladar.
It looks real slick out there, Ron, and you're definitely tiptoeing around at the moment here, and it looks like Lead Pack's made it through the first kind of major downhill corner there. This one always catching a few people out on the first couple laps. They're really easy to either kind of make or break your drag race down this back straightaway here as we're going 3 wide at the front.
And already racing hard, 2 Masters racers and your reigning champion here duking it out as they head their way down the backstretch off into the hairpin. They're gonna go, and through into the race lead is going to go Tortolo unless he doesn't get a good run out of the turn. Antonio Reese Wolveronio holds on to that spot. P1 for Antonio as they head their way out of turn at number 6 into 7 right now. It's been a good start for all these racers. One driver cutting their way through the field like a hot knife through butter is actually, I'm looking through lots of hard chargers already, but drivers dropping down. Brian Hansen and Lars Tiehaus dropping down like stones thrown into a pond.
Yeah, looks like we had a little bit of attrition there early on. Some pretty great moves from Antonio there for sure. In under braking there, he was able to kind of switch back and get that one back from Colascio there. Some pretty contentious stuff right off the bat, or sorry, from Tor. Pretty contentious stuff right off the bat there, Ron. We're definitely going full bore here right off the rip. Got some pretty close driving here in the back as well. Guido Marzucci kind of been away for a little while, getting right in there with Parvinder Ladar. Hopefully we can get a good result out of him today. I know he's definitely looking for one out there, but yeah, looks like we got some movers and shakers fairly early on here.
Yeah, certainly a lot of movers and shakers at this early stage of this race. Antonio Reese leads over Tortolo, and here comes Marzucchi trying to make a lunge as side by side going on right in front involving Love and Colascio. There's that fight involving Guido trying to make up some moves there. Parvin Ladar on the inside of him backing out as they head their way through into turn number 2. Nice to see Guido out here on the track, and you can catch him in the production truck for the 2 Formula Ford and Spec Racing Ford shows coming up here on the Weekend Warriors on slow motion broadcast just about 24 hours from now. I will say as well, Josh, the front 2 really breaking away, forming their own little pack as it stands right now. Meanwhile, everyone else behind involved in their own squabbles.
Yeah, they're definitely starting to break away here a little bit for sure. And, you know, usually I'd chalk that up maybe to some squabbling, but it does look like there's a bit of a gap between Degassis and Love. So this could just be on pace here, that they're just trying to kind of pull away. You know, Tor usually going to be a guy who thinks in the car there, and if he's thinking, he's not going to attack Antonio here too much for the first little bit. Antonio's got some pace, and you want to get away from the rest of these drivers here. So hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, but it would be the smart thing to do here if he just kind of played ball with Antonio for a little bit. Don't take too many hacks into the corners and stuff, because that just slows you down. And you can see they're just gapping the field here for sure. And I would imagine anything behind about Alan Degassis at this point is just going to kind of get caught up in some battling. It'd be very difficult to catch up to the front pack, especially in the rain today here around Okayama.
And super tough in a situation like that. Let's see how these racers will manage it, as we're nearly 4 minutes into this race already with Antonio Reese and Tortolo leading, and Reese your leader in the Masters category. Tolo your top running competitor in Spec 1. Meanwhile in Spec 2, Parvin Ladar is not your race leader in that class. That's actually Andrew Love in the number 4 spot in the 5 44 car holding on to the lead in that category as it stands right now. As we look at this battling involving Ethan Orr, not getting off to a good start at all. 8 spots dropped ever since the drop of the green flag. Ethan, he's been incredible in qualifying, but hasn't really gotten the results in the race. Now, as of recent, though, he looks like he's tried to turn another leaf, but right now here in this race at Okayama, he's starting to struggle side by side with himself and Michelle Lynn heading off through turn number 1. Michelle going to back out of it, remaining in P11 at least for now. Michelle, one of very few racers in this field right now who are still running in the exact same spot that they started in, the others being Chris Montgomery, Kurt Nunez, Brett Thompson, and Wayne Buttermore slotted down in P18 as it stands at the present moment. Everybody else moving and shaking all throughout this field. In a rain race, sometimes it could be an accomplishment in its own regard to just be there at the end, make it through to the checkered flag, and you're going to be smelling like a rose because it is super tough.
Yeah, it definitely is, Ron, for sure. Rain just adds a little bit of extra attrition to races like this and makes things a little bit more difficult than they would usually be. A little bit of grit out there for sure, as we see Brett Thompson trying to make a move here on Joshua Justice up the inside. Probably going to get that one fairly easy. And, you wouldn't fight that one too hard because really it's just going to slow you down. But he's going to come back on the inside here. So as long as you can hold that side of the track through that section, it's pretty hard to get that pass done there. And you're always going to be able to kind of dip back down to the inside here as Joshua Justice did and get it done. I'm just noticing here again, still on our timing tower, that we're having some technical difficulties here with the classes for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm working on trying to fix that, but we are racing with 3 different classes today. So we do have S1, S2, and Masters drivers out there driving together. They do drive for points overall, but they're also driving for their classes at the same time as well. We'll try to get that fixed as soon as we can here.
And don't worry about the technical issues, Josh. I'm pretty sure I could use that technical issues excuse as the reason why sometimes I get my tongue wrapped around my teeth about 15,000 times. It's a different kind of technical issue, but a technical issue nonetheless. As we take a look at side-by-side racing, that's Andrew Love and Nate Colascio battling hard off into turn number 1 through into 4th. He's going to remain for Andrew Love. The Pied Piper of this back, but he runs wide coming out of 1, and now the side-by-side fight got flare up like a Colascio sweeping around the outside that number 8 car and through into P4. He's going to go. Well done from Colascio. Pretty slick and commanding move there. Now look at Parvin Ladar. He's got his own battle to talk about side by side with himself and Chris Montgomery as they head their way off through the S's down into turn number 5. They're going to go right now, squabbling up still. Holding on to that spot is Ladar for a couple of moments, but Montgomery just going to sweep down, having the power down on that inside line. Going to hold him off. That turns super tough in these Formula Vs as you have to keep that momentum rolling as we head our way off through the turn. That can be a pain in the bouteille.
Yes, it absolutely can. This track has a lot of places like that. It's a decent way to put it as well. It's a pain in the butt for sure. I've never really been able to find my jam around here. I just can't. I don't hate this track by any means, but never really been able to just kind of get it all together for an entire race around here and put it together. It's so easy to make mistakes, a little off track, just like we saw Colascio pull right there in one of the harder sections of the course to get right for sure. I just feel like it's going to take a little more time for me to get this one, I think. And I think we've been here so often, like I was saying in the run-up, you sort of expect things from the track, and that can really be a bad thing sometimes when you expect a result.
I'll tell you what, it is a nostalgic race for me for one simple, not very ideal reason. I've been battling with technical issues on my own as well. Not able to pull up my own production feeds. I'm just rolling off the one that I got in Discord. My Discord is presently frozen right now. So at the current moment, I'm seeing Andrew Love heading down into the hairpin of turn number 5. I would have it a guess that as it stands right now, he is heading his way off through that start-finish straightaway, across the line right about now to begin the 4th lap of the race, just running off of timing information right now. I will be right back. I'm going to beat my PC with a hammer, and hopefully I will come back soon with a refixed production feed.
Yeah, hopefully we can get those technical issues figured out. Always, on both sides of the spectrum here, of course, you get some technical issues on track, and every once in a while, us in the production booth like today are having a few technicals as well. But back to the racing here, we got Andrew Love just behind Nate Colascio here. Pretty big pack of race cars. I would imagine these guys, they want to try to pull away here, but I'm not sure it's going to be doable with that other pack of cars behind them here. The likes of Kurt Nunez, Jim Brewster, and Michelle Lynn. They're going to start catching up to these guys pretty soon if they continue to swabble like this. We see Nate Colascio or sorry, as we see Andrew Love there kind of just pulling wide a little bit, trying to break some draft. We jump back up to Coliseo here as well, just trying desperately to keep that lead from Andrew Love, and the rest of this pack here doesn't look like it's going to work out for him, though. They're going to get caught here pretty quickly as he goes up the inside of Coliseo here. And Marzucci looking for a little bit of track there, not able to find it behind, I believe that's Chris Montgomery in front of him, who was really qualifying well today. He's been able to slip back a little bit here in the rain so far, but man, we're getting a pretty big pack of race cars here starting to pack up, and that's kind of exactly how I expected it to be. We go back up front here with Antonio Reese and Tortullo up at the front, just pulling away here. They got about a three-second gap now to the rest of the field. 5 seconds really till that next pack, and Alan Degas is just able to hang on here in third place, just in touch with the rest of the drivers here. He is slipping back a little bit. So these two in the front, Antonio Reese and Tortullo, really able to kind of work together and be able to pull away from the rest of this pack here. And that's definitely what you want to do on these draft tracks, is try to find a buddy that you can work with and see if you can't get forward in the pack. And if you just can't find that out there, sometimes you end up squabbling. Like back here we have a pretty good fight going between Chris Montgomery, Guido Marzucci, and Nate Coliseo here as well, with a little bit of Ethan Orr there actually poking in the back as well. It looks like we've got a bit of a mix-up here. We'll go back and see how exactly we got that pass to happen here with Chris Montgomery. It looks like he made one happen on Nate Coliseo here. So have a quick peek. Looks like he just got it done down the straightaway. Fairly easy draft. Pull out of the draft and then get it done into T1. Pretty standard stuff there. Guido Marzucci trying to make it happen on the inside there as well, and he's going to get it done as well there into T1. So not too bad. A little bit of movement here in the mid-pack. We don't have to look out the outside now. Probably not get it done, but then he will have the inside for the next corner, so we'll see how that works out. We get a shot off the nose here. Track starting to dry out a little bit as Coliseo almost running into the back of Chris Montgomery there. You don't want to do that in these Vs. You got basically a point on a point there, and you're never really going to end up getting it a one-to-one bias there. You're always going to catch one side of it and end up either spinning the car or yourself on that one. But I got to also mention here, iRacing do an absolutely amazing job of the spray coming off these cars now. I know they've been doing a little bit of work on that recently, and we're about to get a pretty major update in the next while here as well, or for season 4 I should say. And man, it's looking pretty good these days. The rain just getting better and better and better as we go on.
Yeah, the rain absolutely looking fantastic here in this sim. And I gotta say as well, it may go back to the fact that I absolutely adore rain racing, period. Getting the shots that we can on these broadcasts of these rain races, always absolutely awesome to see. They just look good nowadays. I think that's also down to the fact that Josh has a PC taken straight out of NASA and no longer sounds like a plane taking off. If I was producing this show, you wouldn't even be able to hear my voice. My PC would be screaming that loud. We'll say, though, we had a sideways snap with Nate Coliseo as he headed his way off through turn number 5 not terribly long ago. I think there may have been a little bit of extracurricular drama involved in all of that, as Parviner Ladar has dropped down to P9. He was running right behind him at the time, and it looked too unnatural. These Formula Vs, even if you unless you put them on ice, they don't really spin up the rear tires to a certain extent. So chances are that small little wiggle that I personally saw from Coliseo may have been a little bit of tap, a little bit of a rub potentially. That could be the reason why Ladar has dropped back. I'll actually look through to see what Parviner Ladar's lap times have been as of recent here in this race. Yeah, looking through on this past lap, it was not very quick for him, nearly a half a second slower than some of the laps that preceded it. So Ladar right now dropping down a little bit, a brief little reprieve, as it's not a reprieve at the front, as they're 2x2 heading down to turn number 5. Look at Guido cutting shapes,
getting that one done right there. Guido got it done on the inside. It looked like it was a little bit forceful from Guido there as well, so it's good to see a little bit of aggression out of him. I know Guido's been kind of begging for a win, honestly. It's getting a little bit more difficult in this series to win, especially when you take a bit of a hiatus like that. Other people are just kind of getting faster while you just kind of are at the last race that you were at. And I definitely think people have gotten a little bit faster since then as a group. But Guido today doing really good up in 4th place. Really like to see him get a little more aggressive just like that. Maybe we can get a good replay of that pass here. Let's have a look.
Yeah, let's take a look at this replay. This is going to be good stuff from Guido as he heads his way down that start-finish straightaway. No, that's not the start-finish straightaway. That's a back straightaway. If that was the start-finish line, I would be expecting a photo finish here today. But no, that's a nice move from Guido, getting it done, heading down the backstretch off into the hairpin of turn number 5. Also be very odd that a start-finish straightaway, instead of leading you off into turn 1, leads you off into turn number 5. But I digress. Antonio Reese holds on to the race lead right now. The P1 racer in front of the number 1 racer, the driver of the number 1 car, Tortolo. He's been rather inconsistent thus far this season, in the sense that sometimes he's been here, most of the time he hasn't. And he even said that heading off into the season that, hey, look, I've gone nearly a year straight of championships. He won it in season 4 of 2024. He won it in season 1 of 25, season 2 of 2025. I'm not sure if he'll be able to get done here in season 3, but still a fantastic run of form from Tour. It looks like that championship battle going to be very much on between a couple of racers. Should be noted as well, Felix Mose, I believe, entered this round as the championship leader. Not going to be here today. I'm not sure if he'll even be here tomorrow for the other Weekend Warrior shows. He's off with his son at a Formula SAE event out at the Hockenheim ring. So nice to see that father-son duo in the racing world, as we see a duo of 2 cars battling hard in the Spec 2 category. Nope, that's Spec 1. I cannot speak English today. Chris Montgomery and Nate Colascio battling hard for 5th, Josh.
Yeah, they've been kind of going ding-dong here for a little while. This pack is probably the closest pack of drivers on the track at the moment, although that's going to change pretty soon here if they continue to swabble like this. Swabble? No, squabble like this. They will. They're definitely going to have Michelle Lind and Jim Brewster on them really quick here as well. So, you know, Guido out there just trying desperately, I would imagine, here to kind of try to break away with Chris Montgomery here, although I don't think he's going to let him do it or make it that easy for him to do as well. As the track does definitely starting to dry out here, Ron, I would imagine we're going to start seeing lap times come up a little bit as they get more confident under braking and with those curbs.
Yeah, that confidence building for all of these racers. And hey, if you're enjoying today's broadcast, happy to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so don't miss out on any of the racing action. Samuel Cooper has made that call to come down pit lane. That's not as a result of strategy. You don't pit in these races. Not sure what the deal is for the driver of the 710 as side by side into 2. That's Marzuki battling hard, trying to hold on to P4 for as long as he could, but Chris Montgomery able to get that move done on him. And all of this battling, it's now an 8-second gap between themselves and your P3 runner of Alan DeGassis. Really shows you that this battling can start to drag these racers down a little bit. Marzuki holds on to 5th as it stands right now as they head their way around Atwood curve of turn number 4. I talked about this turn a little bit earlier on in this race, Josh, about how challenging it is in these Formula Vs, doubly so in conditions like this. These are momentum-based cars. Keep the momentum rolling, you're going to be good. You keep it not rolling, you're not going to be feeling good, as we may have some 3-wide action heading down to turn number 5. Certainly side-by-side racing with Marzuki and Montgomery, Colascio and Orr battling right behind. That's for 6th. There's a battle going on for 4th and 5th. Marzuki nearly goes off the track, very flirtatious with that outside grass as he gets the inside through 6. Looks like he'll be able to clear him if he gets a good enough run through 7 of Piper, and there we go. That's Marzuki jumping his way up into 4th, but this pack is still very much big, and this battle is still very much alive as Montgomery looked to get back on him, hang down the small little flat out blast into 8.
Yeah, some great driving going on there for sure in this mid-pack. Some really, really good, respectful driving going on back and forth here. And you're right about turn 4, Ron. It's not an easy corner. It's sort of downhill. You know, you just feel like you can take more speed into it than you can over and over and over again kind of thing. And it's so very important to not only get a good exit, but sort of keep your tempo up mid-corner as well, which makes things difficult. It means you really have to be on the edge of everything to get through that corner optimally, basically. And by edge, I mean not slipping and not sliding. You need to make sure you're just right on the edge of that grip and get every last piece of the tire out of it, and then all the exit you can muster. And that's in every category really in that corner too, but maybe none quite as much as the V, but definitely gotta make sure you optimize that corner. And just think about it every lap, to be honest, as they're coming down towards it right now. You're just thinking, okay, this is my opportunity here to make something happen. I can get a good haul out of here. I can probably get a good corner out of here. And if you get it wrong, you just pay for it all the way down that back straight.
Yeah, if you get a bad run coming out of turn number 4, you are going to be chopped liver, to invoke a little bit of 1940s radio terminology here as Nate Coliseo battling hard with Ethan, or that's a squabble for 6th, as I think Kirk Nunez got to try and get into the epicenter of all of this battling as well. Should be noted in terms of the classes as it stands right now, as we are going to see 3 wide action nearly end in disaster. That could have been contact. Oh, that is contact right behind. 3 into 5. Not going to work out well. They managed to make it work. Well, at least a few of them did. Kirk Nunez got shown the door. He's now dropped down to P13, so there's at least 1 casualty in all of that. I think outside of that, though, with 6 cars going into a 6-pack formation, heading down into turn at number 5, 2 3-wide battles, that could have ended so much worse than it did. A shame for Nunez, who's now dropped down outside of the top 12, but I am shocked we didn't see someone end up on their lid.
Yeah, that was honestly really, really well held by everybody there. Everybody, you know, seeing a little bit of caution instead of just going for it there. You can see everybody kind of tighten up a little bit and then boop, loosened back up, and everybody made it through the corner. So pretty good stuff there from everyone, but that was pretty contentious there for a moment. Really easy to do around here, like we're saying on the run up. You kind of expect things, so you go into that corner going, yeah, I got this corner. I can do it. I can enter as fast as possible and exit as fast as possible. And if everybody's thinking that at the same time in a group like that, that's what's going to happen. You're going to end up with cars on top of each other, but did a really good job to stay off of each other there and not end up sideways or anything. We've had a pretty good race as far as attrition goes, actually. There's a few incidents at the beginning there that I'm not sure we'll have time to get back to here, but you know what? Let's have a quick look here. We did lose, actually, Brian Hansen right away. We're going to stick with this just for a moment, because it looked for a second there like Tortola was getting a little bit froggy behind Antonio Reese. And, you know, if I was him, I'd probably just be waiting till the end of the race at this point. There's really no point in trying to pull in front of somebody this late.
Yeah, Tortolo being in a position to win at the end of one of these races where draft may have a big role in deciding who's going to grab the checkered flag. Now, where have I seen that before? It sounds vaguely familiar. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit off as we take a look at, Brian Hansen getting hit up the back big time. That was right
Lars
towards the end of the first lap. Yeah, that was Lars Tiehaus piling in.
Yeah, Bummer, yeah, so you kind of just got caught out there, unfortunately. Didn't really get the start of a race there. Those are always the hardest ones, you know, and you kind of have some anticipation about racing, and you're excited in the first lap. Boom! Something like that happens, and man, it can just be the worst. Honestly, sometimes I'm not even so bummed out about the crash as I am about just not being able to race. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to go do something else now. Wayne Butter. Whoa, Buttermore. Oh, almost got out of the way there, Samuel Cooper. Really easy to do for Wayne Buttermore there as well. And I believe we had one from Brian Belinsky here, or Belansky as well. Not an easy conditions out here to get used to this car today, and I think he's probably just going to have a spin here on his own off of a curb. Really easy to do in the first half of the race here when it was super wet out there, and just really not easy to drive around.
And seeing a lot of moments heading off to the mid-sector of this track, what I like to call the mid-sector of this track. And bearing in mind, for me, that pretty much means heading down into the hairpin of turn number 5, through on the exit of the third to last corner of turn number 9. That's the mid-sector. That series of corners, as far as I'm concerned, I always feel lightly disoriented heading off through that part of the track. Now, that could be down to the fact that I gave myself way too many concussions as a kid, running full speed into our coffee table down the living room. I'm not really sure what that entails, but that section of racetrack, not a race car's favorite part either. You have bits where you have a lot of weird weight transfers going on, the weight shifting from side to side, corner to corner, end to end, and you also have some curves that are rather lethal as well, with some gravel traps off through there as well that can really bite you hard. As here we go, that could have ended in tears as Chris Montgomery and Guido Marzucchi continue to throw haymakers at each other. And look at Ethan Orr now looking for the move around the outside into 5. That's a battle for P5 as it stands right now, and into 6 they're gonna go, with Ethan Orr now holding onto that inside line. It looks like he'll potentially be able to clear Guido as he goes off the track, runs wide, ends up in the gravel. Now he's got Michelle Lynn right on his inside. That's not gonna work though. Contact being made. They're stuck together. Guido, I think, is gonna leave that with a broken off wheel.
Unfortunate right there. That looked pretty fiddly, didn't it, Ron? It didn't look like anybody was really super at fault there. It's just sort of 2 cars on the same piece of track. We'll have to go back and have a look at that if we can. I'm not sure that we actually got an incident report, but we'll have a quick look here and see if we can't roll that back a little bit. This might be slightly before it, so a little bit of contact there. Yeah, that was kind of fiddly, wasn't it?
Fiddly D indeed. That was a bizarre moment from Guido Marzuki. Let's take a look at this. You can tell how badly things start to go when you get put off your line a little bit. These Formula Vs, they like to run the racing line, and that is about it. You can catch the Racing Line podcast over on the Ray Esports channel. You can see the contact being made, side-by-side racing into 7, not going to work well there, and it was that final blip, that final little bit of contact as his cars unstuck each other. That was when that wheel got broken off. It's such a shame for Guido, was running well in this race. Now he joins the only other retiree of Nick Tullo, who had a moment a little bit earlier on in this race. He slid down P22 in the 981 car, the first retirement from this race. He has a meatball flag as well, so I think he decided, you know what, I'm out of here, and decide to promptly leave upon a moment happening for
a
him.
contact
Look,
there.
Battling going on. Yeah, that was Ken Hato and Josh Justice.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bummer there. And yeah, I don't know if I'd really put too much blame on anyone there. Guido kind of went to the outside. It looked like we may have another one of those sort of iRacing glue scenarios there where you kind of get close to each other and this sort of magnetization thing happens and then it spits you out sort of thing. Not really sure if that's the case. They did get pretty close and together there, but you could see Michelle Lynn just get a little bit loose on the inside and kind of went wide, and not really anybody's fault there. I don't think they're trying their best to stay off each other, and it just didn't work out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's one thing about these Formula Vs that's getting brought up a lot, especially as we get to the end of the season and look ahead to what Season 4 has to offer, doubly so with the other notes that came out in terms of what we can expect in the other seasons to lie ahead. These Formula Vs and the physics that comes with them, there's one word I could use to describe it. It would probably be janky. There's some things about these cars when they make a little bit of contact, it's looking rather screwy, as this is looking really hair-raising. We nearly saw contact with Ethan Orr running into the back of Chris Montgomery as he headed his way around the final turn. That's going to give Nate Coliseo a good opportunity to get a move done on the both of them. They nearly touch. That's going to be Coliseo slipping back in tow as the squabbling now going to go on between Orr and Montgomery through turn number 1. They're going to go into 2, and that's Ethan Orr jumping his way up into 4th in the 22 car.
Yeah, that was a pretty close one there for sure. Almost had another wheel locking there, and I think you're right there, Ron. With the open wheel cars, it seems to be a bit of a, I think it's just difficult to get that net code right, you know, not putting any blame necessarily on iRacing here, where you have a connection thing where you're expecting 2 tires to be able to intermesh with each other when one person's in Australia and the other one's in Ohio, and that's not necessarily going to work out every single time, and it works out most of the time, but not all the time. But you are seeing that a little bit with the Vs, as well as I think you're probably right. There's a bit of a little bit of a physics thing here as we're going 3 wide again here with these pack of drivers. Just won't give up.
Okay, I think these racers are trying to blow my vocal cords out, which I think they've been trying to do all season long, if I'm being completely honest. Montgomery and Orr, they nearly come to blows as they had their way out of turn number 5, and they're still close together. We'll say something as well. It was brought up in the YouTube chat as we took a look at a replay from well earlier on in this race. This track has evolved a lot. The track currently being marked as lightly wet compared to the very heavy rain that we had a little bit earlier on. It's also not raining at all as it stands right now. The weather has gone away from this track, as here's Tortolo going away from P2 into the race lead. Through into it he goes, as not really fighting it too hard. There's Antonio Reese. He really just lets Tor by. I think that as 2 ends of it, I think that could work out well for Antonio, just remain in the coattails. But we're getting towards the end of this race. It's going to be close, but I believe we have 2 laps left to go here. Josh, it was close, but I think they did grab the 2 to go there.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. A little bit surprised to see Tor make that move at this point after holding back for so long. Perhaps he's just given somebody else a shot to get a run at him on the last corner to the line here. We will see how that all works out, or maybe he's got something even more interesting in store for us here. Do a little swapperoo and then back over there, but who knows? It looks like it's definitely going to be between him and Antonio Reese so far without any sort of incident here. But the fight for 4th place here is really where it's at the moment. Ethan Orr, Nate Coliseo, Chris Montgomery here all in a row, been fighting pretty much the whole race here, back and forth. not really been able to bleed too much time either to the cars behind them here. I believe they've been squabbling behind them as well, the likes of Jim Brewster and Michelle Lynn, seeing a little bit of attrition back there, slowing them down probably a little bit too. Ethan are pulling out to the inside here, having a look up the outside. Sorry, not going to make it happen yet. I wouldn't be looking for that move quite yet if I was him, Ron.
Yeah, no, at this point in time, really, in a race like this at Okayama, even with the rain, you want to try and get that move done on the last lap, because it can work out in two ways. Either A, the driver makes a mistake, or B, you just are able to slipstream by him heading down the back straightaway. But here we go, side-by-side fighting, gonna flare up once again. Colacio and Orr battling for fifth. Tortolo about to grab the white flag in this race. One more lap of racing for him as the clock continues to tick down. He heads his way out of the final corner. If this is actually the checkered and iracing throws it a little bit early, I will eat my shoe. As we come across the line now, white flag going to be in the air for Tolo. One more lap of racing action for him. 5 seconds of difference at the line. I have to bring in the fuel discussion. Hello, Adam, over on the Racing Line podcast. Antonio running right in tow. Alan Degas is peaking at the right time, setting the fast lap of the race by a pretty comfortable margin there at a 1:56.2. As we jump back to the battling for the final spots inside the top 5, Montgomery, Colacio, and Orr, all covered by Bat Nothing. Jim Brewster, Michelle Lynn, a battle of the series admins. I would not want to be in the fly in the wall of that schedule discussion if those two end up touching. And look at Andrew Love there in behind as well. Some of the Formula V weekend warriors, most experienced racers, all running around each other. This is a good battle involving all three, nearly all three of our classes as well. Here's your current race leader. It's Tortello as we head our way down the back straightaway. Antonio, I think he may have tried to go for a lunge hang down to turn number 4, but didn't work out for him well at all. Got a poor exit there, and he now has to think about going for it down to turn number 5. Will we see a dive from Antonio? Doesn't look like he's going to go for it. Tor holds on to it as we head our way through turn number 5 for the last time in this race and jump back to this battle for the final 2 spots inside the top 5. Montgomery and Colacio battling hard. Look at Ethan Orr. Gonna try and pick up the pieces as well. They head off into 5. That's Montgomery holding on to it still. Colacio gonna run a little bit wide, and Ethan Orr gonna be stuck on the outside. He actually clears them before they head off into turn number 6. But if we jump back to the front, Tortolo and Antonio Reese still covered by about a quarter of a second, adding their way into turn number 9 right at the end of this race. Will it be a Masters winner for the first time here this season, or will it be Tortolo getting a win yet again here in the Formula V weekend warriors as we head our way down into the final corner? Tortolo, we didn't think about him running at all throughout this season. He's run from time to time, but Antonio has a good run. It's a long run up to the line. Tolo got to try and break that draft. Antonio there to pounce. It's a photo finish at the end of this race, but give it to Tortolo.
Not quite. Great run from Antonio there at the end to try to pull that one. He got a good line. He did everything he could there. So that was a great race between those two and these three as well, keeping it nice and clean. Michelle Lynn bringing it home there in 7th place, just in front of Andrew Love. Actually, maybe not. Oh no, yep, just in front of Andrew Love. And that was a pretty good race all around the field there. Not too much attrition today. A little bit of, a couple drivers sort of out of place. Parvinder and Joshua Justice. Kurt Nunez here back a little farther than usual. But yeah, a bit of attrition out there today. Some really great racing from everybody as well. And I do apologize for the overlay class issue here. I'm really not sure what's going on with that at the moment. But we will get that fixed up for next round with a brand new project file.
See, I'm wondering if that was the issue that I was having, because I was trying to get hooked up through a lot of timing software. I brought up the overlays and 3 lemons popped up, so I'm not sure what the deal was there. Yeah. But Tortolo, well done to him, grabbing the checkered flag. That's his 2nd win this season, the first one coming at Jerez a couple of weeks ago. As much as he's not in it to win it for the championship, that's still going to be a good result for him. Reserve a mention there for Ethan Orr, who finishes this race in P5, going to make some big inroads in the championship, leaving this round of the championship. As we take a look at a moment there involving Parvinder Ladar and Josh Justice. This was a fight up to the line. Look at Justice. I think he had a slowdown there right towards the end, and Ladar tried to follow him off and to try and maintain that draft, but he realized, you know what, I'm just gonna take that spot. Thank you very much. That's Ladar making up a spot right towards the end. Now I gotta wonder what sort of demons we're going to have once we see Brian Belansky and Brett Thompson cross the line. They're involved in their own little battle as it stands right now. Coming up to the line, it looks like Belansky gonna hold on on to that spot unless he misses a shift. Look at Thompson closing as they head up to the line. Gonna be a close finish here for P19. Brian Belansky just got him there at the end of this race. Hey, I'll tell you what, Formula V Weekend Warriors always puts on a good show, even if it's a battle for the final 2 spots inside the top 20. Brian Belansky gonna hold on to that P19 spot at the end of this race. Now I gotta wonder what sort of chaos is going to go on with the Crash 'em Up Wreckfest. If I had to guess, it would be in turn number 5 as it usually is, but no, I think I may be wrong. There's Ethan Orr and Nate Coliseo heading their way down the start-finish straightaway. I'm not sure whether or not I should be nervous, scared, terrified, or a mix of all three.
And they're not letting off the throttle here, so the banana car getting peeled into the wall there. Not
banana splits.
Banana, yeah, there. That was the obvious one. That was the obvious one, wasn't it? Oh, there's some wrecked cars for you. Andrew Love knows how to burn one down for sure. He's done it more than a few times here. He's gonna push Wayne Buttermore around a little bit. Always fun to pick on your competitors after the race a little, as we see. I believe was that Jason Grider? Nope, Jason Grider looking just as clapped out over here. Not sure he can move anymore. He's looks a little bit stuck. In that one. Carpenter Ladar,
just looks like it just looks like a sheet metal bathtub there.
Yeah, he's looking a little bit exposed. That one there, not exactly how it's supposed to look. Nice open air though, if you wanted to see how the front suspension in a V works. There it is. Oh my god!
Monster trucking it.
He definitely just jumped off his forehead there, so that's not one that you want to see every day. But let's see if we can get a replay of that here, maybe from his point of view. Oh yeah, here we go. The tire right up your forehead
trucking it there.
Yeah.
That was a monster truck move. That was fantastic.
Not too shabby. Yeah, we always like to burn them down here at the end of the race, and pretty fun stuff. Good race around Okayama once again. Always showing a pretty good race around here. Not my favorite track in the world, but certainly not my least favorite. And yeah, looks like we had a pretty good one again.
Yeah, pretty fun one here for race number 10 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Tortello, your winner at the end of it all, as we see Jason Grider. That car is still somehow drivable, as we see Ethan Orr go from side to side there backwards. I gotta say, some of the states that these cars are left in at the end of all this, I gotta wonder how these cars somehow managed to drive away from the scenes of oh, that's not one that's gonna be driving away. I think that's Brett Thompson upside down. You can tell that's a scary moment based off the fact yeah, the grass is spewing off the wheel despite the fact it's in the air and not in the grass at all. This roll hoop is, nothing else is. Hey, iRacing, you may well fix that. You know, I'm not going to draw attention to that problem because last time I made a joke about iRacing, I think I was talking about the weather forecasting. My sim did not work for a couple of weeks. That was an unmistakable sound of a Formula V engine exploding. The unmistakable sound of metal snapping in the midst of that.
Yeah, we definitely got some broken race cars there for sure, and a little strange to see grass flying off a tire that isn't dug into the grass, but I know that that's actually one of the issues I think that they're working on there, some of that particle stuff. That's a little bit strange here and there, but overall I'd have to say they've done a great job in the last couple seasons here of kind of fixing all that stuff. It's the spray and the water and stuff just looks fantastic now.
Yeah, the spray's looking good. Everything's looking good. iRacing doing a very good job. I'm not just saying that because I want to end up on one of their shows between now and the end of the year. Let's take a look at the results at the end of this race, though, and see the gap at the line between Tortello and Antonio Reese was only a half a tenth. 0.056 of a second at the end of over 30 minutes of racing action. Great stuff for the two of them. They pulled away. That gap between themselves and Alan DeGassis was as high as 4 seconds. But as we got to the end of the race, Alan DeGassis was able to set in some absolute cookers, set the best lap of the race on the second to last lap, and then was able to one-up that on the last lap of the race as well. Alan DeGassis going to walk away with that at a 155.9 on that last lap. Can tell you how much the track was evolving as we got to the end of it. Chris Montgomery is classed in P4 at the end of this race, and you can see how much that battling behind really drove a wedge in between your podium runners and the rest of the pack. So 14 seconds back of your winner of Tullo will be your P4 finisher of Chris Montgomery. Ethan Orr rounds at your top 5 at the end of this race. Nate Coliseo going to finish right behind in 6th. Michelle Lynn walks away with the win in Spec 2, finishing finishing this race in P7 at the end of it all there as well. Look at that gap at the end of that race. 6 thousandths of a second between Michelle Lin and Andrew Love. Absolutely incredible stuff between those two. Jim Brewster will finish this race in P9. Series admin walking away with the top 10. Jason Grider rounding out your top 10 in the 552 car. It'll be Parviner Ladar finishing this race in P11. Josh Justice will be classed in P12. Kurt Nunez is finishing this race in lucky number P13. I don't know why I'm slowly but surely drifting off into being a nighttime jazz radio announcer here at the end of this. Ken Adu will finish this race in P14. That's uncanny for me to do. Let me Wayne Buttermore is going to finish this race in P15 at the end of this race. Lars Tyhouse is classed in 16th. Brian Hansen is classed in P17. Samuel Cooper will finish this race in P18. Brian Belansky in 19th. Brett Thompson rounds out your top 20 with Guido Marzuki and Nick Tullo not finishing this race. The only two retirees of a heavily rain-soaked race here at Okayama, but a rather clean one through it all as well, Josh. That was quite a fun one here today at Okayama, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is a place we were saying in the beginning there that kind of everybody knows really well, so you're going to know the track fairly well. You're out there racing your competitor, and sometimes that can really change the game when you're not worried about any of the corners maybe as much as you would be on a track that you're not so comfortable with. And obviously I'm not going to speak for everybody here, but I would imagine that most drivers out there today had some fairly good experience with this track before, so it's always going to kind of change the racing a little bit, and we got some pretty good racing today.
Yeah, this is a track that a lot of these people have a lot of experience running on. Everybody on iRacing has driven around this track extensively at some point. This was actually the track that I did my first ever test show on. And by a test show, it was basically, here's how all the software works. Okay, have fun. You're now officially an iRacing broadcaster. And here I am a couple of years later making fart jokes on the air and getting paid to do so. We'll have a chat, though, to kick off the interviews. I think we'll have a chat with the sponsor of today's broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, Michelle Lin, going to join us here in the broadcast booth. Michelle, welcome in. It's a Philly on Philly chat here. First off, thank you for sponsoring today's broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And secondly, how was your race?
Hey, Ron. And yeah, let's go Philly. Go Birds. I had a gig last night. I didn't get home until like 1 a.m. this morning, and I'm super tired. But I like the rain. I had a really good setup for the rain, and our team, Ethan and Grider and Parvinder, we were all using it. And like the setup felt good, but there was a lot of dicing because you couldn't get away from anyone. And I know I had some wheel taps. I think it was the first lap, myself and Kurt Nunez. I think it was maybe Chris Montgomery slowed. There was an accordion effect. And I picked up wheel damage on lap 1, and the entire race my steering wheel was like 10 degrees to the left. So it was interesting, and I had a lot of little battles, and need to go check the replay before I say anything, because I know Guido and I got together, and I don't know what happened, but I feel bad because I love Guido, and I need to see what happened before I say anything about that. But overall, like, normally you sponsor a race, and that's the anvil. You're definitely not going to win that day. And so I'm extremely surprised. And also I thought, sorry, I'll shut up at some point. I thought Andrew beat me to the line. So I'm really, really surprised that I finished ahead of him, though I'm looking at iRacing and it looks like I finished 6 thousandths of a second ahead of him.
Yeah, it was close.
Oof. Also, I'm hoarse as can be right now, I'm noticing.
Oh, don't worry. I last night I was doing a show and I had a bad sip of water right as I was trying to call restart of a NASCAR race, and went down the wrong pipe, and I had to call the rest of the race like that when there was, I think, a 26 car pile up on the final lap, and I have been chewing on cough drops all throughout today. But I gotta say, that battle between you and Andrew right towards the end was rather insane, and we'll say as well, I will give you further word as to whether or not Guido is upset about that moment. I remember Summit Point a couple of weeks ago. He was involved in a moment, and he fired off, I think it was a 5-6 minute long rant right before he went live, and I had to use every fiber in my being not to die laughing as I was doing the opening to that broadcast. But overall, though, this race, it looked like a fun one behind the wheel. I love rain racing. I'm definitely biased in that extent. How did you find this race in terms of the enjoyability of it all, even though you were tired out of your skull having done that show
here's
last
the
night?
Thing. With the setup that I made, like the car is actually much better in the rain. And so I was actually quicker at the beginning, but as the track was drying, I was struggling. Plus I had a little bit of like, iRacing said wheel damage in the front, but like what that meant, I don't know. I just know that my car was like, my wet setup is normally like loose in the wet and then extremely loose in the dry. And then with the wheel damage, extremely loose was an understatement. My car was so loose towards the end, but I didn't back out. I was just pushing really, really, really hard. And I forgot what you asked me. I'm sorry, dude. Oh my god.
Have you ever seen the clip on the Racing Line podcast where I think Jim Brewster asked me about karting not being the final goal if I ever returned to racing, and I ended up spinning off in a story about my dad being a practical joker? Trust me, it's a mark of a good commentator, Michelle. If I am ever like absent, I'll know I suffered food poisoning from a badly cooked cheesesteak. I'll have to give my C in the broadcast booth to you. You've got the gift of gab like me, so don't feel bad one bit. It's a good interview. We always like having you here in the broadcast booth. And again, thank you for sponsoring today's show here on SMB. But looking ahead to next week, going to be running at Lime Rock. That's usually like a NASCAR-style drafting race, except with Formula V's on a road course. So I will ask you two questions. First off, how are you looking forward to that race in 1 week's time? And if you're not looking forward to it, what will be the Excedrin/ibuprofen dosage after all that? Because it's usually going to be a bit of a headache for some.
Okay. I'm gonna answer 4 questions if I remember them all. Number 1, I would love to be an announcer, but I would curse too much and I would get fired after the first one. Number 2, I have an Excedrin in me right now because I just took an aspirin before the race. Number 3, I love Lime Rock. I said this multiple times to multiple people. I got my competition license there back in the day. I've done the most races in real life at like Summit and Lime Rock. I've always had great races at Summit and Lime Rock. But in Sim, Lime Rock especially tends to be a demolition derby, and I hate it. So it's like my favorite track in real life and maybe one of my least favorite in Sim. So it's just, in real life, people give room because they don't want to die. They don't want to have to repair their car when they barely have enough money to keep it running. But in Sim, those concerns aren't there. And so I think that everyone just pushes that little bit too hard and it turns into like chaos. But if you can hang on, it's an exciting race. That's for sure.
I feel like I'm probably going to have to buy a new bag of cough drops for that race in 1 week's time. It's usually chaos in a fun way, at least from our perspective here in the broadcast booth. Also a very good day for the in-sim tow drivers at certain points in time as well. But Michelle, thank you for giving your insight about this race. And again, thank you for sponsoring. But we'll let you give any thanks or shout-outs before we let you go and celebrate this win at Spec 2 today.
Well, I'd like to thank myself for sponsoring today. Kidding. Shout out to Jim and Stevie, for helping, not helping, you know what I mean, for doing everything that they do. Thanks to all the Weekend Warriors for being a great group of guys to race with. Shout out to my team. I'm running out of stuff to say.
Nick Fleck, Blarney Quando Flern.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. No, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Go Birds.
Go Birds!
Yeah, there we go. Perfect way to end all interviews. Go Birds. I think they also won one of their preseason games last. See, I say that I used to be like someone who knew absolutely nothing about stick and ball sports. Then I got the broadcasting schedule from hell like I've had this year. I say got the schedule. This is all self-inflicted here. So if I talk about racing too much, I basically have to do it as my job. So now I watch baseball, football come time for the fall, and watch a whole lot of stick and ball all sports nowadays. So very odd how the fates turn. But Michelle, again, thank you for sponsoring today's broadcast. Well done on the Spec 2 win, and looking forward to seeing you out there on track at Lime Rock next time out. Go Birds.
All right, later, guys. Bye.
And that right there was Michelle Lynn joining us here on this broadcast. We'd once again like to thank her. I think I thanked her about 5 times during that show. It's always good to have a chat with her at the end of these broadcasts. But Josh, I'll let you get a word in edgewise and have a chat with somebody. Who do you want to have a chat with here?
Yeah, let's pull Batonio down here, or Wolverino.
Alrighty, Wolveronio.
Wolveronio.
A really very.
How you doing today, Antonio? That was a really great race from you today. You were able to hold off Tortello, even off the last corner down the last straight, which I don't think anybody has been able to do yet. So really good job there today. It was a bit rainy at the beginning. How were the conditions out there? Did you really feel the rain in the beginning and then it kind of changed, got a bit faster, or how'd it feel out there?
Yeah, I was kind of I don't know what's happened with me today. I was surprised I was there on the top. What's going on? What is happening? I didn't know.
You're fast.
Yeah. So I was like, what I'm doing here in the front, leading the race. Something is wrong. But anyway, I just keep driving, keep pushing, and anyway, just watching the relative box, the distance for the guys behind, and trying to keep maintain that advantage. And the track start to dry up a little bit after a few laps, and then it get faster and faster lap by lap, and was like the car have much more grip. So yeah, I was already on the practice getting that kind of situation as well, because I think it was set it up that way. So on the practice we have sunshine and rain. So we practice a lot of those different conditions on the track. So that was good for get awareness of the track conditions.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to to another question similar to the first one. There is, we've all been to Okayama quite a few times, probably in our iRacing careers, and generally speaking, when I go into a race and I know a track really well, I actually get a little bit more nervous than usual when I'm racing people, because it's going to be more difficult. I sort of expect some things from the track. Is Okayama one of those tracks for you, or is this a place you just kind of relax and turn some laps off?
Oh, I feel that on every track.
Okay,
I feel nervous everywhere. All the races, anytime.
Maybe that's the key. Maybe I have to start feeling more nervous.
Yeah, probably. I didn't notice any difference on my side, so I'm always the same level of nervous every track.
Okay, well that's interesting. Yeah, I always wonder, because sometimes when you go in kind of expecting something from a track, it can really hurt you. Where I have found if I go in and it's kind of maybe a new track that I don't know very well, but I've clicked some laps off, it's a little easier to go out there and just turn the laps and not worry about maybe you're trying to get so many moves done. But great race today. You were able to hold Tor off, and I believe the next round we're headed to here. I'm actually just looking it up. Looks like Lime Rock's our next round. So there's another one that's just it's a bit of a small autodrome there, and it can kind of bend your mind a little but by the end of the race. Is that one you enjoy or not so much?
Yeah, I enjoy. I really love that track. I love Okayama as well. So it's those kind of tracks that I'm used to those. And about the thing you said, I just want to say that when you know well the track, you are like overconfident, and you have the tendency to do more mistakes because you are overconfident, because you know well the track. So I always try to back up a little and stay, a little bit away from the pace that I usually do, to avoid, that overconfident kind of a feeling.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the answer I was looking for sure. I kind of try to do the same thing, but it's so easy to get caught up in your own emotions sometimes and just fly through that corner that you think you can nail faster than everybody else. But yeah, excellent race today, Antonio. Some good thinking in the car and stuff. And anybody you'd like to thank out there?
Yeah, you guys on the broadcast, you always, and Steve Ray and all the guys helping Steve Ray organizing everything, and the sponsor, Michelle, and as well for the drivers, for all the great community of and from my wife for allowing me to do this.
Excellent.
and for all the YouTube viewers and all the guys watching us. Yeah, thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Right on, Antonio. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, good to have me. Thank you. Say bye bye.
Bye bye.
And that right there was Wolveronio, Antonio Reese, our Masters winner at the end of this race. Not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he's just about sealed it in the championship here in the Masters category this season. As let's bring in our winner for only the second time this season. I feel like it has been I can't even say a very long time. I feel like it has been a very never time that we've gone to say that Tortolo, as we get to the end of the season, only has 2 wins, but he hasn't been around too much. But when he he's been quick. Tortolo joining us here in the broadcast booth. Tor, welcome in. Congratulations on the win here at Okayama. How was it out there?
Man, it was a fun race. It was a fun race. Antonio's always a great guy to race with. But right around with 10 minutes remaining, my frame rate got cut in half, and I was racing with about 15, 17 frames per second for like that entire last 10 minutes.
Slideshow.
So I mean, yeah, it was like racing in a slideshow, but luckily Antonio's an insanely clean guy, and I was just about to keep it on track, and yeah, somehow won.
Damn it, I was going to ask you how it was racing on a PowerPoint presentation. You took the words right out of my mouth there, Tor. That's got to be super tough, though, running around a track like this, because Okayama, not necessarily a forgiving one. It's an old school track in the sense you've got so much grass and gravel around here, not a whole lot of runoff area, 15 frames per second. Pretty sure I used to push 30 on my old PC even before the rain was introduced, so I can't necessarily say that's an alien experience to me, but 15 FPS in a race like this in the rain involved in a tight battle like that, I wouldn't class that as torture, but I wouldn't say it's anything better than that.
Certainly not. Yeah, it was pretty close to torture, and there's a lot of choice words at my PC as it was happening. But yeah, it was yeah, we were able to get away right from the get-go, and for the first 20 minutes it was a really enjoyable race. And I personally have real life experience at Okayama, so it was really good to kind of put it all into the sim and yeah, have a great battle with Antonio.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because you're having a chat I saw in the Formula V Discord server with newcomer to the series, Ken Haddo, and you basically have hometown tracks everywhere, essentially. You've got ones here on the States side. I think I remember one time seeing a video shared by, I think it was your father, of a kart race that you're running at New Hampshire Motor Speedway on the outfield course. We've seen you run at tracks in the UK where you still do from time to time. You've run here, as you just said. I feel like you have hometown tracks on every single corner of the globe. Do you have one down in Australia yet? Keyword being yet.
Not yet, but it's in the works. Yeah, there's a few things that I can't exactly say yet, but some interesting little one-off excursions planned for the future.
Well, certainly looking forward to seeing you get a test drive in the brand new Cadillac F1 car for 2026. We'll see you alongside Valtteri Bottas next year. But Tor, well done on the win here at Okayama, and switching our attention to next week at Lime Rock. That's going to be a drift fest. You usually do well in those races. So what are your thoughts heading off there in 1 week's time?
Well, it's really weird because I usually don't really like draft fests, but I end up doing decently. So, but like as usual, it's such a lottery. Like, I mean, really, it doesn't really matter where you qualify. It doesn't really matter what your pace is like. I mean, as long as you have good luck, you'll be there at the end. So, all I can say is just I hope for the best and that there's no falling anvils and yeah, just positions in the right place, right at the end.
And certainly looking forward to seeing that race here on Slow Motion Broadcasting in just 1 week's time, and hoping that as few people as it is possible avoid getting struck by lightning in that race coming up. But Tor, we'll let you give any thanks or shout outs before we let you go and celebrate this win here today.
Big thanks to Brabham Motorsport as usual. It's a big honor to be part of such a historic, great team. Big thanks to SMB for a wonderful broadcast, and a big thank you to Antonio for a great race and for avoiding me while I was struggling with PowerPoint.
And hopefully the PowerPoint presentation here on iRacing will be resolved for the next time out, and you won't have to shout fiddlesticks at your computer's graphics card. But Tor, thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth. Well done on the win, and looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack in just 1 week's time.
Thank you so much.
And that right there was Tortello, your race winner at the end of it all here today. Josh, a pretty wet and wild race, but overall those racers kept it rather smooth here. Not under the lights, although it was certainly darker than if it would be in the night. But Tortello victorious here at a pretty intriguing race, shall we say, at Okayama.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really good one. You know, sometimes, like we were saying on the run up there, these can get pretty frenetic pretty fast because people are kind of expecting something from Okayama, and those first couple corners can end up, you know, losing quite a few drivers. I've seen it happen. I've been one of them more than a couple times. But yeah, everybody held their own today really well. It was actually a very good race, and the rain too. Like to see the V's in the rain maybe a little bit more. It does add a pretty good little layer of interest here, I think, to the race, and it offered a pretty good race up today for us.
And certainly a good race to look forward to in 1 week's time as well here on Slow Motion Broadcasting when the Formula V Weekend Warriors return at Lime Rock. That is going to be a very good race to look forward to, part of the absolutely awesome schedule of races to look ahead to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting as we get to the end of Season 3 of 2025 here on the iRacing platform. Of course, tomorrow you can see the rest of the Weekend Warriors action. The Formula Ford's going to be running in just about 24 hours time here on SMB. They're going to be running at Sonoma. That's a rather intriguing race to look forward to. Haven't seen too much of Sonoma. They're actually going to be getting completely refreshed that track. So will be possibly the last ever broadcast that some of you may see with the old, ancient, outdated scan of Sonoma Raceway. And later on that day, you'll be able to see some more American road course action with the Spec Racer Fords running at Road America. American Muscle Series set to return here on Slow Motion Broadcasting this upcoming Tuesday at 9:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They'll be at round number 5 at question mark, still running the deal with tracks being announced day of show, and hopefully y'all will be able to tune into that show this upcoming Tuesday. If you're not in the mood for American Muscle though, I'm going to take a look at some nice plucky little Formula cars with the Sim Racers Group F4 Series running their 11th round at Interlagos. Some champions looking to be crowned in the SRG world. That's already been sealed in the F4 Championship, and you'll be able to see that champion run in the F3s the day after that. They'll be running their 11th race of the season at Laguna Seca the day after that on Wednesday. And coming up later on this evening, gonna have Ron's Race Night action, week number 10 action from the Legends Road Course Cup at Lime Rock Park. So hey, we'll get a good sneak preview as to what to expect for that Formula V race coming up in 1 week's time here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. But as for this broadcast here today, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Josh Wilkie working the comms and the cams with me on today's broadcast, and the fine folks over at Whiplash Sim Cams supplying the track cameras for tonight's show, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into this broadcast on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.